Poltergeist infestations are considered a rarity throughout the UK. However, when one comes face to face with the phenomena, you quickly become aware of how intimidating it can be. For myself and the team of investigators was soon to find out. It was August in 1995, and a month not to forget because we were into our third week of a heat wave that was scorching the UK with temperatures of 85 to 90 degrees, which is unusual for the UK. During this time, an article appeared in the Manchester Evening News, which kind of brought to my attention by somebody else. It read, "Spooky spills scare family from home." Of course, like many other paranormal investigators, I was immediately wary that the family home in this case was a council property. And that wouldn't have been the first time that people living in these council residences have blamed paranormal phenomena in hope of a quick and successful move to a more desirable location. The family claimed that they were being driven from their home by spooky outpourings of water which had pretty much made their lives a misery, absolute misery. They were living in a prefabricated bungalow and sudden gusts of water were soaking their beds, carpets and furniture. Despite several inspections by council workmen and housing officers, the cause remained a mystery. Now, Jim and Vera Gardner, who shared the home in Rochdale, UK, with their daughter Jean, or Jeanette, and granddaughter Alison, even got their local vicar in to carry out a blessing in the case. This property was actually had some supernatural origin. Gardner's claimed that within an hour of the blessing, phenomena was back as it was ever. The family say that they have no option but to accept alternative home options from the Rochdale Council. Now, Jim, 2 years previously, had lived in the bungalow for over 13 years, and until 10 months ago, there was never a problem. Vera had stated that the local media, more than one occasion, she had thought that she must reach out to them regarding these poltergeist-type disturbances, is what she thought. She also mentioned that it might have been her first husband's spirit that was kind of displeased that she had remarried, that sort of thing. The incidents apparently took place anywhere, anytime, without rhyme, without warning, without any reason whatsoever. Vera and Jim were having problems sleeping during the night as well. Strange, unusual sounds. Sometimes water would break out in forms of droplets covering the whole area of the ceilings and would disappear quickly. At other times, the family say that gushers like heavy rain would suddenly fall, pouring through the kitchen ceiling, and the council workmen were even there to see this. It was as if it was raining inside, and an umbrella would often come in handy. The local vicar said, "I went to support the family and I did some prayers in each room and hope that might resolve the situation." It appears that wasn't actually the case. And he did state that the family were clearly distressed about the situation. A spokesman from the council said, "The cause is a mystery to us. We have carried out extensive checks but have not found anything that could be responsible." Well, you can imagine what was going through my mind after reading the newspaper article. I decided to act fast and contact the council and family. They were more than welcome to me conducting an interview with them. I sensed anticipation in Mr. Gardner's voice. I arranged to visit the family and took a couple of investigators with me. I pulled up outside the family home and I remember thinking how hot it must be in those prefabricated bungalows. Its walls were made of non-corrosive light metallic structure, which must inevitably have caused temperatures to rocket inside. These prefab bungalows were described as, well, they were initially supposed to be temporary accommodations in the 1940s. However, the council had obviously thought them fit to be living in them on a permanent basis. So I grabbed my camera and I headed down the path and I met Vera at the front door. As I entered the house, I recall a smell of dampness in the air. We were then shown to the living room where, after a minute of chit-chat, we headed into kind of an interview process. We were astonished at this point that all the reported incidents, they were remarkable. Mr. Gardner explained, it started maybe around about 10 months ago when we noticed a damp patch on the wall in the back bedroom, which started to leak. We got the council and they came out and had a look in the loft and couldn't find any problems. We went on basically to describe to them about some of the incidents that have been taking place. It started at one particular place, then it shot across the ceiling from one corner to another corner, and it even seemed to curve around ceiling lights. It would happen in bedrooms and it would pretty much then suddenly stop. Again, they used to ring the council complaining about this, and they sent electricians out next time and dismantled the ceiling lights to see if there was any problems with them and checked for water. And again, no sign of it. They used to leave a report form for them to fill out. The councilmen had no idea what was causing this problem with water. Was it some type of heat or causing condensation? It couldn't have been. It finally stopped in the kitchen and started in Jean's room then. It stayed there for about 4 or 5 months, and it happened every day and was causing a lot of upset for the home, for the people living in the house. When we decided to move Jean's bedroom, they said, to another room, apparently the phenomenon moved with her. The council workmen came and brought detectors in, and they couldn't find a good reason for this. They initially said that it may be some form of weird condensation. But Vera said this was ridiculous, of course. Then all of a sudden it would stop for about a week, and then they thought the ordeal was over, only to bring out furniture and carpets again. And within 10 minutes it was back with a vengeance. We didn't put stuff back out. Apart from the water, I was sitting here one night, Jim said, and the handle of the door in the lounge started to move and the door opened. Expecting to see somebody there, there was nobody there. But the odd thing was that everybody was sat in the lounge at the same time, watching TV. There was nobody else in the house apart from them. Of course, Jean, the daughter, went off to stay at some friends one night because of the difficulties. And Vera and Jim were also struggling to sleep during the night. They often heard coughing coming from the corner of the room. Even though a little scared, Jim did actually thoroughly check the house and found nothing unusual. We've also smelt tobacco, they said, in the bedroom, a smell of licorice type smell and some type of tobacco smoke. Last night, he said, the hairdryer flew off the drawers and hit the granddaughter's friend on the back of the head. It seemed to be more concentrated around Jean and her daughter. And the council first said that, well, it's a mystery. They said it must be down to condensation, and accused of them even throwing buckets of water on the ceiling. It's crazy. And of course, this goes on and on and on. They went on to say that they'd lived there for 13 years and didn't really want to move. They loved it there. The council office suggested we shouldn't cook. This is what they were told. They shouldn't cook. They shouldn't shower, bathe because of the condensation problem. This, of course, is ridiculous, as you can well imagine. Alison, the granddaughter, was found crying one night after she felt a cold presence in the room and something prodding her. It started to bang things around in the room. Of course, obviously, this was a point of trying to keep her awake. They've even seen things, slight movements in the corners of the rooms, and sometimes objects are flung around. Mr. Gardner's conversation was cut short by the crying out suddenly of Jean whilst we were there. So we rushed out to find out what was the problem, and we saw this streak of water shoot across the ceiling as if intelligently controlled. I couldn't believe my eyes, obviously, at this time. Now, when it comes to these paranormal types of incidents, could there be evidence of truly something remarkable going on here? So we quickly rushed for the cameras and we took several photographs. Some of the water dripping from the ceiling was put into a sealed container for analysis, and a secondary container was used to do a sample test of the tap water in the bathroom so we could have a comparison. The water manifestation lasted for about 15 minutes. It quickly vanished, of course, leaving no trace of it behind, and nothing to show on the ceiling, not even a watermark or stain. Now, from there, we kind of went on into the kitchen, and another remarkable incident took place where Mr. Gardner was stood in the centre of the kitchen, and it was raining. He was sat there he went and sat on a stool with his umbrella up with this funny smirk on his face. You can imagine, I can just imagine what it looked like. Whilst the water was on the ceiling, people did climb up to the loft and have a look in there to see if there was anything. There was no water tanks, there was no water up there, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. You literally put your hand out there and look and feel around on the ceiling and look at and see the water on the ceiling underneath. It was just, I have no idea where the water was coming from. we were just completely stumped. We asked Mr. and Mrs. Gardner if we could conduct an active investigation. So, of course, Mr. Gardner said, would you like us to go and stay at Friends for the night? And I thought, that's a great idea because it completely eliminates human agencies or anything faking, any hoaxing going on. So we agreed to conduct an active investigation, and that was set. We asked the family to keep a record of events so that we could basically, check how things were progressing during the time we were away. But what I did is I went and stopped around the corner, and the reason being is, once I left, is because I purposely left a little recorder running behind the cushion on the settee, a little trick that sometimes I do. And when I went back, I said, oh, I've left a piece of equipment, I think, on the settee, and I found it, and I took it and said goodbye, and went back and parked around the corner to listen to it. And we sat there listening to it, and basically they were saying things like, oh, do you think they'll believe us? Do you think we've lost our minds? Did you think that they'll be able to help or get this to stop? It was seemingly very authentic. And that actually helped us a lot in regarding the authenticity of the witnesses we were talking to. The vigil was about a week away, and we had a lot to learn regarding the phenomena, as poltergeist infestations are not very well known. The word poltergeist comes from the word noisy spirit, and its particular phenomena has been recorded for many years. This is probably the most destructive and terrifying of all paranormal activity. British paranormal investigator Harry Price didn't hold back his objectives. Price stated that poltergeists can be cruel and spiteful, and he always stated that ghosts seem to haunt where poltergeists infest. There's a possibility that haunting phenomena and poltergeist phenomena may be related. However, there doesn't seem to be enough scientific evidence to support the theory at this time. Some scientific establishments refer to poltergeist activity as being caused by suppressed sexual energy, which is often found in adolescence. Poltergeists are known to have attempted communication audibly or by writing, even though most messages are malicious. The most common question is that, do these incidents occur from a single entity or from within the witnesses themselves? Some witnesses have believed that, they're known to have been attacked and maimed up by these unseen forces, and also injured by flying projectiles sometimes. Houses have even been plagued with a constant pelting of small stones and rocks. Some formings, better known as physical liquid manifestations, are also known to have occurred during this type of activity, such as water and oil, tar, even blood on occasion. Most hauntings refer to haunted places, but poltergeists have been described as haunted people in a sense. The extraordinary and often destructive action of poltergeist is usually attributed to one person around whom the phenomena focuses. This has given rise to the theory that poltergeists are either internally generated by people in a state of stress, or some external discarnate entity or able to latch on somehow to this particular person. And by this nature, poltergeist activity is probably the most frequently reported type of haunting in the world, and it dates back centuries upon centuries. Poltergeists have been referred to as ghosts, elementals, entities, agencies, second personalities even, intelligences, powers, spirits, imps, and so on. But one thing is that they all share certain unpleasant characteristics, as you can imagine. Whereas the ordinary ghost of our kind of storybooks is quiet, inoffensive, timid, noiseless, and benevolent. The poltergeist usually is the opposite. They are many differing events within the poltergeist activity. They often consider, they can be mischievous and destructive, noisy, cruel, erratic, thievish, demonstrative, purposeless, cunning, unhelpful, malicious, audacious, teasing, ill-disposed, spiteful, ruthless, resourceful. They're very resourceful, and even vampiric. In all circumstances, these ghosts are usually referred to as poltergeists would, seemingly like company, and ghosts don't seem to. And that's kind of what we've figured out over the years. We find the term poltergeist in the common within the German language, the verb polter, to make noise by knocking, thumping, or about, rattling or scalding, blistering, that sort of thing. And also the Interesting derivatives are polterzimmer, a room where children can make a lot of noise and bang the toys together. So you can see how the name is sort of come from the German verbs and language. There are even weddings that people have, which are, and this part of the process is to make a lot of noise outside the home. Poltergeist infestations or visitations, being quite inexplicable, are still very much unknown, and they seemingly are associated to adolescence, more than a girl, more so than a boy. And this young person appears to be the nexus and attraction of occurrences. Notice I said almost all the time, but they're not always. Now, should they remove the focus? Sometimes you'd expect the phenomena to, not take place in the home. But that's not always the case. It seems likely that there is a psychological basis for these physical objects that undoubtedly move under conditions which prelude psychologists' theories, and it may be that unusual combination of psychological tension, sexual awakening, physical energy, and intense, but possibly unconscious, actually, an unconscious connection somehow, are associated. The one comforting thought that poltergeist disturbances don't seem to last for very long. Certain observations have been made. Poltergeist projected objects invariably finish up at a lower level than the one they were originally at, utilising the minimum amount of energy, really, rather than an attempt to defy the laws of gravity in a sense. Some of these objects, though, usually seem to commence movement, but very, very rarely. Objects flying through the air often drop to the ground and make no noise. Sometimes they don't even bounce when they're supposed to bounce. Many of young people involved are usually healthy, although some may have hysterical outbursts. Poltergeist disturbances do seem to occur when the young person is enjoying a normal sleep. It seems to have a direct connection with these people, according to many scientific documents. But like I say, it's not written in stone. The positive thing is, how is it possible for a person to be responsible for such destructive activities and yet totally be unaware that he or she is the cause? The psychologist known as Sperry discovered that literally we have two different sides of our brain, and there's a kind of a different person living on the right hand side. The cerebral hemisphere is not really us. Yet, those arguments continue about, is it something to do with our split brain and we have a second personality taken over? There's lots of research in this field, but unfortunately, nothing we can really get our teeth into to say, yes, this is the actual cause. This still leaves the question, how does the other self cause objects to fly through the air, of course, especially when apportations have been discovered? The answer could lie in the observation that some dowsers can be thrown into convulsions when they're stood above some type of underground springs. That has apparently happened. It's also interesting that if we were to assume that if the right side of the brain is sensitive to various earth fields, then it seems conceivable, that the brain might be associated in some way. However, it could be something coming through the earth and geological effects on our brain. There's lots of theories out there, but none are really fit comfortably. Of course, we have to say that these particular objects which are moving, there's a whole different source of material and research just in that area alone, of how objects might move and the apportation phenomena. Are these forms of uncontrolled PK, formerly known as telekinesis? Again, there's been a lot of work in that area regarding these young people being associated to, those type of disturbances. In all cases, they're usually adolescents that are involved, and the child has been shown to be under some sort of stress at the time. Now, when conducting tests, the characteristics to check for such adolescents are intense EEG activity, dizziness, sleep deprivation, disorders, paralysis, loss of sense of taste, pulse weak and erratic, hormonal imbalances. the presence of a large amount of adrenaline and noradrenaline hormones in the brain, sometimes a loss of body weight, pain in the limbs, weakness. One of the earliest recorded incidents of poltergeist phenomena took place in 858 BC at Bingen in Germany. There are others that have been well documented, such as in the Atlanta home of Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, blood appeared on the walls and floors. The blood eventually vanished just as mysteriously as it disappeared. A sample of the blood was actually taken to the local scientific establishment and analysed, only to reveal that the actual blood was in fact human and blood type group A. Sorry, blood type group O. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson were blood type group A, so it wasn't their blood, so we don't know where it came from. Another interesting one is 1889, the Dag family in Quebec, Canada. They were plagued by disruptive spirits, and an 11-year-old girl, Dinah, would actually be hearing information. You'd actually have conversations with something, voice coming from the poltergeist. This has allegedly taken place on more than one occasion. When Dinah was asked if anyone was there, she would often heard the reply, a visitor went to Dinah to the woodshed at the back, where, again, the voices happened. And is anyone there, she claimed, and of this male rasping voice would come out. And most of the time it would speak obscenities. The voice would say, "I'm the devil, get out of here, I'll break your neck," and things like that. The following day, imagine a crowd of people actually attended the shed. But, it all turned a bit sour, and they all became a bit embarrassed when the voices started to reveal intimate secrets about their private lives. In 1977, of course, we have the Enfield, London case where a rasping male voice was heard coming from another 11-year-old girl. And there was an astonishing claim that her vocal cords were not being used. The voice claimed to have been the dead man who once lived in the house. And again, the voice was abusive. Though the aid of research, it was established that the man in question did in fact apparently live in the house. Of course, this the Enfield continues to be debated even today in regards to its authenticity. In a poltergeist-infested house in Ireland, of course, another unseen force communicated with unusual sounds. The Society of Psychical Research, a gentleman known as Sir William Barrett, discovered that rapping noises responded to his mental requests. He was thinking of a number and asked the poltergeist to knock that many times. He tried this 4 times, and each time it was successful. This apparent ability of spirits to communicate by rapping led to the development of table tilting, or better known as tiptology. Statistics show that out of 100 investigators' cases, poltergeist infestations, only 8% are investigated competently by outsiders. And also, most poltergeist activity seems to be house-centered phenomena. Not all of it, though, because sometimes they do move with the family or the focus on occasion. And there are a number of profound incidents regularly reported about these such infestations and them relocating to other places. Mr. and Mrs. Adams from Yorkshire in the UK attempted to move house to avoid these particular disturbances. However, they made a pact not to even talk about it. And the reason being is that, things were going missing in the house after they'd been talking about them. So it's as if the poltergeist phenomena was somehow eavesdropping into their conversations and learning about things. And, of course, was obviously seemingly intelligent. Now, on the day that they moved, both kept quiet and started to take furniture out to load into the van outside the property, making sure no conversation took place about what they were actually doing. They didn't want this thing to follow them. But unfortunately, though, a neighbour from next door came out and saw Mr. and Mrs. Mr. and Mrs. Adams were loading in this table into the van. At this very point, an old rasping voice came out from the doorway because the neighbour said, "Are you moving?" This voice came from nowhere and said, "Yes, they're flitting." Of course, the game was up. Now, the poltergeist did actually follow them for several months to another location. When it comes to apportations and asportations, there's lots of different things. Imitative sounds, disembodied voices, incendiary effects, things bursting into flames, electrical and mechanical interference, even incubus, succubus type occasions, incidents do take place, and amorphous shapes, sometimes apparitional. Poltergeist projectiles will often behave very strangely, and sometimes they have an unnatural trajectory, as if they've turned in flight. The only way to have gone into the room is they must have turned a corner and come in. This seems to indicate that the poltergeist wants things to be witnessed and wants to generate worry and stress and vexation. And basically the theory is that they're a parasite. They're a parasitic phenomena that's feeding from, how we feel and the emotions and the upset and the stress to create the next act. And it's a vicious cycle that goes round and round. Now, when it comes to these type of phenomena, I've only witnessed about 6 of them in my life, incidents in 41 years. They're rare. And despite what you might see on the internet or what you might read, I still think they're rare. There's a lot of hokey stuff out there. And these problems that people have with connections with this phenomena, they cause psychological problems, sleep disorders, panic attacks, phobias, even mental injuries through vexation. Some objects are seen to fly through the air slowly and then crash to the ground. However, there's also those that they say that they've seen the objects fly through the air very fast and then have fallen very hard to the floor and not broken when they should have done. Bit strange. Some objects are found to be hot or warm to the touch, especially those which are apportations. Maybe indicating some molecular manipulation, who knows? Especially those objects have been seen to pass through walls. Maybe that is something about why they're so hot to touch once they're first discovered. As previously stated, objects are rarely seen to travel upwards. This may indicate that they're trying to battle gravity. Why waste extra energy? So what about the gardeners? Well, of course, we arrived at their home on the active investigation. There were 6 of us, which were there. And we asked about the activity. Now, we were told, well, this particular picture in the hall flew off and hit the granddaughter. It caused a fall so much, like took a dint out in the wall. Other pictures have fallen off from the wall. A vicar, also local vicar, called round. It didn't go well, apparently. A large foiled painting flew off from the lounge and hit him in the leg. He was really in a lot of pain. He didn't stay around for very too long, as you can well imagine. The kitchen scissors are also a favourite to come flying across you, at you. Not hitting you, but you have to duck out the way of these forks and spoons as well. The smell of licorice and tobacco smell still filled the air. Lampshades were moving around and often reported seeing swinging backwards and forwards. A nephew got hit on the back of the head by a makeup case. A most unusual thing, they heard radios working when they weren't even plugged in. That was also quite a number of people reported that, including a vicar. Strange buzzing sounds could also sometimes be heard at night, yet we're always unable to locate the origin, Vera said. And, they're always trying to find out, what is these noises? Where are they coming from? On one particular night, she was left on her own and she was found terrified. Jim went in and found her in the right state. She'd had some terrible experiences and didn't really want to talk too much about them. As for the water was kind of off and on. It wasn't happening all the time. After a second interview, Mrs. Gardner and Mr. Gardner left the house. We set up our equipment and we did a sweep in each room. And the idea was us to go into pairs and swap around into different rooms for about an hour at a time. After about 20 minutes in one particular room, I stood up and I was in the lounge at the time, and Alicia, she was with me, and she saw something in the middle of the floor. It's a statuette, small statuette. How did it get there? We've no idea. It was so obvious, we could have tripped over it, could have fallen over it, stood on it, broke it. Where did it come from? We've no idea. But we did go through the video cameras, because when we first do an active investigation, we do video sweeps of every single room. So if things are moved, we can go back and look at the videotape and see, well, where were they at the time, the original resting place? The statuette wasn't in any of the videos. We don't know where it come from. So we had to thought, all right, let's just put it on the side for now and ask Jim and Vera when they come back the following day and see what they have to say about it. Where did this object actually come from? Now, there are many theories regarding the poltergeist phenomena, but they're not always written in stone. And when we were doing our investigation, there were things which were happening, even though the catalyst or focus wasn't there. As like I stated, it's not written in stone. I heard a strange sound from behind me, and it was a sound of my voice calling my name, my voice, and I heard my name being called, and I turned around and there was nobody there. That was really weird. Goosebumps went all over my arm like some type of uncontrollable allergy. I spent many a night in alleged haunted buildings, many, but sometimes this you feel a bit different. This had that different feel to it. The atmosphere was heavy and sense of static in the air. Now, two other investigators recalled how our conversation was interrupted when I heard this voice over my shoulder as well. You know, you definitely do hear these things. Now, being slightly unnerved, as you can well imagine, I moved to the back bedroom then and had something to eat and drink. It was Carol to have a next experience. She was another investigator with me, and she also heard something. She turned to us with her mouth kind of dropped and paused and said, "Did you hear that?" She described hearing a radio. Interesting, because Jim and Vera had mentioned this sort of thing. And it was like a police radio, she said, and it just came over from over her shoulder. You know, this relieved me a little because, you know, I was, you know, some justification as to what I had heard as well. So I wasn't the only one hearing these things. Once again, the incidents took place about an hour after the last incident. So were these happening periodically, maybe? It certainly seemed that way at the time. It was now 1:45 in the morning, and another hour had passed. Everyone was sat in silence in the house listening for the next outbreak. And what happened then was that we had a switch around, and Val was coming out, another investigator, of the hallway, and she suddenly stopped and could smell a strong scent of what she said was hyacinths. But, you know, everybody could smell this strong smell of flowers. And we were sniffing the air and we could smell it. It was very prominent. And then suddenly it was gone. We couldn't smell it. So that was another mystery. And then, of course, the drops started. We could feel little drops of water falling from above. It was kind of hitting us on the head. But when we looked up and examined the ceiling, there was nothing there. We couldn't see anything. This carried on for about 10 minutes, expecting a mass of water to suddenly shoot across the ceiling as it had before. But it didn't. Now, by 3 o'clock in the morning, I was becoming tired and wanted to change rooms. So I went to the back bedroom, another back bedroom, and I was sat on the end of a bed with Val and Carol and sat there in silence. Then suddenly from behind us, we heard heavy breathing. I temporarily froze, as you can imagine, not daring to look over behind us. I leaned forward and Val was looking at me and Carol was looking at me as if to say, we're not looking behind. So I kind of turned round to look into the darkness. And at that point, I can only describe it as I got hit. I got thumped around about the kidney area of my back. And I ended up off the bed and almost on the small dressing table in front of me. Now, I'm a big guy, it takes a lot to move me, so I think it was a bit of an electric shock as well. That's how I kind of moved so much. But it was painful, it was really painful. So I did what any professional investigator would do. I ran. I ran out of there because this is the first time I'd really experienced physical phenomena interacting with me. And it wasn't a pleasant experience. It was really painful. Of course, I shot off, and investigators were more interested in taking photographs on my back, and a big red mark was appearing, and which did leave a bruise for a couple of weeks or so. The next morning, breakfast time, of course, around about 8 o'clock, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner arrived back. We immediately asked them several questions. The first was, where did the statuette come from? Mrs. Gardner said, it came from the side of the television, but on the video recordings, it wasn't there when we first went in. So where was that, actually? We've no idea. Also, Mrs. Gardner, they told us about the statuette was a present from her previous husband, which was also interesting. And now he had suffered apparently from chronic asthma and was a heavy breather. That's interesting as well. And spent many hours in the bed in the back bedroom where we heard the heat breathing coming from. Unfortunately, he collapsed in the hall and died. So he actually died in property. Also, he used to be a taxi driver. So I wonder if that's something to do with that kind of police radio. Maybe it was some type of taxi radio we were hearing. And get this, he was also a smoker of tobacco, Old Holborn tobacco, with licorice papers. So everything was kind of pointing, is this some type of haunting? But with poltergeist attributes. We left the gardener's house at about 9 a.m. And then we wanted to get the results back from Northwest Water Laboratories. Now, when that came back, the analysis, it was really, really interesting. The results were considered quite remarkable because we had these two different analysing done, the tap water to test sample and others. So we had calcium, sodium and chloride, which were higher in the paranormal water than the tap water. Now this is likely due to contaminants from the ceiling wallpaper, British gypsum. Also mentioned about the ingredients in the plaster with calcium sulfate and an insignificant amount of sodium chloride. This may account for some of the high readings in regarding the water taken from the ceiling. However, one of these things actually stuck out more than anything. It was the conductivity of this sample of water from the ceiling was tremendously high. The tap water was 181 and the conductivity of the water from the ceiling was 1,323. And we have no idea how that can happen. Not even the contaminants from crown wall coverings could cause anything like that. So we have no idea. It's not contaminants from the emulsion paper or wood chip or anything else. How did it get so much conductivity in that? I don't know. Was it electrically charged somehow? There was Reverend Smith, of course, the vicar, who we did pay a visit to, and he did actually say, yes, he believed it was poltergeist infestation and was very concerned about the house. In fact, he actually said he was considering actually even getting in touch with the diocese to help. But when he discovered that the family might be able to get relocated to another house, he kind of held back to see how things would progress. And but he did confirm he did get hit in the leg by a projectile of a pitcher, and he said it hurt a lot, and he was very upset about that. Of course, this was confirmed by Jim, who said that, told us about the event, about the vicar coming round to the house and trying to help when this incident took place. Obviously, there's not, after doing these active investigations, we gather more data and we expect to see if we can help the family. After discussing our findings with Rochdale City Council and suggesting the family should be relocated and their prefabricated bungalow be left fallow, this is when the property is boarded up for kind of 12 months and all electrical activity in the house, all electricity is cut from the house, completely void from the property at the where they're coming in, the 3-phase. And hopefully this is a method of trying to starve out the phenomena. 4 weeks passed and I got a phone call from Mr. Gardner saying that actually we're going to be rehoused. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. I hope it all goes well. He also told me that the council were unhappy with him because he'd left the bungalow unsecured. Now, the council said that the bungalow was found with all the windows open. However, Mr. Gardner was insistent on the phone to me, telling me it's ridiculous. Everything was completely locked up tight. No idea. Further research revealed that Mrs. Gardner's late husband, might have been haunting the location. And that little statue might represent Themis. She's a god of justice, sort of thing. Was that somehow associated with the particular object that Mrs. Gardner's late husband purchased for her? Is this something type of message there going on? Is he not happy that she remarried or something? I don't know. Your mind starts to wander. So we don't know if she was being haunted by an angry late husband or not. Maybe we'll never really know for sure. But the thing when it comes to poltergeist infestations, there have been some very well documented ones all around the world. As for Jim and Vera, they went on to move to another house and we followed them and basically did some checks, making sure things were right. But the phenomena did go back to that other location with them, and he went with them for about maybe a couple of months, and then the disturbances suddenly just disappeared one particular day and didn't come back. I believe the family are happy now and they've moved on with their lives. But like I say, there were only a handful of cases I've investigated. I mean, I get a lot of things reported to me, about 800 hauntings. They're more common. Many of them were obviously on a corporate investigation level, but poltergeist phenomena, quite a rare phenomena. I really do believe that. And as to what that phenomena was represented, that water forming, how does it do it? What type of water? If it wasn't tap water and it wasn't rainwater, because we were 3 or 4 weeks into a heat wave and it hadn't even rained for that long with hosepipe bans across the UK. Well, where is that water coming from? What type of water was it? We really do not know. But it would quickly disappear and reappear. And there's even been reports that in poltergeist cases, these water formings suddenly disappear for the next forming to take place. So it's utilising of energy. We've still got so much more to learn about poltergeist infestations, and there are lots of documented incidents around the world. Some of them, though, are a little dodgy, to say the least. Some of them are still highly debatable, like the Enfield poltergeist. But one thing is for sure, I've witnessed this phenomenon firsthand. These things do happen to people, and I have no idea why it happens, and it's not always tied to the focus or the catalyst. Sometimes it can adopt a location where they are not in, or it can follow them or choose not to. What are they? What is poltergeist phenomenon? Some type of intelligent entity? A discarnate spirit? Who really knows? So much more research is required to be done in this field. But one thing that we are looking at more intensely is the paranormal mechanics about poltergeist phenomena, which Project Doorway, which is the work myself and Barry Fitzgerald has done some specialised research in that area. So there's more information about that to come soon. So a big thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, then please get in touch with me. And don't forget to please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.